Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the Situation Room. I'm your host, Ahmad Nawaz. Once again, in the past 24 hours, India lies exposed in front of the world. Panic right now prevails in the ranks of Indian Army. We've seen chops and changes in the past 24 hours, even stretching beyond to the past 2 days after the failed false flag operation of Pahalgam, as there have been many changes on high ranks in the Indian Army. Those who have, of course, been removed from their positions raise a serious question about the professionalism, the lack of professionalism, the lack of camaraderie, the lack of ownership amongst the ranks of Indian Army. Fear prevails amongst the lower ranks as well. There is also a rumor circulating regarding the concern of forces personnel belonging to the Sikh community who are termed now to be in terms of going towards mutiny. Once again, we see that India's panic button has been pressed. We, of course, highlight the last 24 hours and give you all the updates regarding this false flag operation of Pahalgam and how each and every passing second gives India another embarrassment on the global stage once again. Flags wave high as justice drowns. Truth is jailed in saffron gowns. From stolen lands to silenced cries, their empire stands on blood and lies. Indian Army has once again resorted to its oppression in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Reports are coming of illegal detention, illegal arrests. Houses have been raided, houses have been demolished on the basis of this fascist regime, and also rumors and news are coming in that India now plans to go a step ahead in this Bollywood-style propaganda and bloodshed of murdering prisoners who have been jailed unfairly, who have been jailed without trial, and of course labeling them as terrorists as well. We will explore the last 24 hours and will give you all the updates that we have in front of us as well. Of course, we're going to be talking about all of this in detail. Joining us is senior political analyst, Mr. Niaz Murtaza. Assalamu alaikum, sir. Welcome to the Situation Room.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much.
Now, Sab, my first question to you is one that is very, very pertinent at the moment, and it seems to be highlighted in front of the world community. In the past 48 hours or more, we have seen panic amongst the ranks of Indian Army. Seems to be that the political and the military leadership are now on opposite ends. There have been many chops and changes which are unjustified, and of course, once again, they're signifying that there seems to be a problem.
The fact of the matter is that the calculations of military leaders and political leaders are often very different. Obviously the political leadership in India, especially when India is led by, the extremist BJP, is quite different. It would like to, attack Pakistan. It would like to destroy Pakistan. I mean, all the things that you hear, the political leadership are talking about these days, some of their, anchors allied with the BJP saying. But then, there is the reality that the military leadership faces, which is that, a war is a very serious game, and especially, war between two nuclear-armed, states like India and Pakistan is no joke. And obviously, they are faced with the realities of what it would be involved to, fight a war in that extremely dangerous terrain. And obviously, they are feeling a lot of pressure from their political leadership. And there has also been this fact that according to Indian press itself, Mr. Modi has given free rein to their three armed forces chiefs, that they can take whatever action they want. But then the surprising, or maybe the unsurprising thing is that, they haven't taken any action despite, this carte blanche being given to them. So this shows, the unreality of the positions that the Indian political leadership is taking. And I think it would be better if it starts toning down this extreme rhetoric about, war and destruction and so on, and come down to, the negotiation table. They haven't had much success internationally from any major country in terms of, the country saying that India would be justified in, waging war. Everybody is in fact doing the opposite, asking both sides to be, cautious. And obviously, the one country that has to be more cautious is India, because that is the country that's, whipping up all this war emotions and so on. So it's a difficult situation for even the Indian military.
Nyasa, what's the political outcome of this that we see in India as well? We already know the failed policies of the BJP government, let alone not only in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, but going back to their crisis amongst farmers as well in Punjab, which was brutally mishandled. And of course, we have seen that on a global stage as well. Then we move on to internal security issues in various states as well. And then, of course, we move on to the issue of minorities not being safe. It's not been only restricted to Muslims anymore. It has even now spread to the ranks of Sikh soldiers who are being labeled as carrying out mutiny.
Well, this is the reality of, the situation when you have an extremist government where, a big plank of its political strategy to win domestically in elections is to, whip up hatred against Pakistan and even Muslims living in India, which is a very different, situation from Pakistan. In Pakistani elections, India is hardly an issue anymore now, or, hatred against Hindus living in Pakistan. But in India, it's quite different. The BJP wins quite a bit by, whipping up these kind of hatred and its Hindutva agenda. So, within the context of all that, this kind of an attack, sort of, shatters the myth of, BJP being a very strong party, a very strong government, which is making India a superpower. And so, it's what you see right now in India is mainly geared towards, the domestic anger that is, prevalent within India, and that is because of, the kind of policy and hatred that BJP has maintained over the years. In the backdrop of that, it's extremely bad for, the ego of the BJP top leadership and its image within, ordinary Indians of being a very strong party and government, which can, make India stronger, give it security and so on. So it's understandable from a domestic point of view of why BJP is behaving this way.
Certainly. Niaz, stay with us. I'll come back to you now. We've been joined by legal expert Ahmer Bilal Soofi. Assalamu alaikum, sir. Welcome to the Situation Room.
Walaikum assalam.
All right, sir, we know that the Indus Waters Treaty, first of all, Pakistan has already considered it as an act of war. Now we know that if you look at the history of this as well, that this is a World Bank brokered treaty. Now, what are the legal ramifications, the legal implications of this that we consider at the moment, considering that we're sure that the world body right now and the world at large is cognizant of the fact where things are going?
Well, actually, the situation is quite serious, obviously, not only from the standpoint of the treaty text, but also keeping in view the surrounding circumstances. I mean, where the relationship of two nuclear powers stand at the moment is a very dangerous threshold level. And this is on account of provocative acts by the Indian side, unfortunately. Pakistan has been very careful and very measured in its response. But at the same time, it has expressed no reservation to react in self-defense or in anticipatory self-defense if the need so arises. So the acts that Indians have taken up include not only the holding of abeyance, but then they have moved on from that position to actually threat Pakistan of undertaking some kind of a coercive measure inside Pakistan. And that's where the situation has deteriorated to a point where, in my view, the UN Security Council mandate stands invoked, and it is now their jurisdiction to step in and to inform, tell, and reprimand India for the actions that it has unleashed against Pakistan and in the region, and direct it to turn the clock backwards and to recall not only its abeyance declaration, but also arrest various measures it plans to take against the state of Pakistan.
Soofi Saab, we know that in the past as well, Pakistan, of course, has highlighted many atrocities that have been committed not only in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, but also the subversive activities of Indian intelligence agency RAW and its operatives in Pakistan as well, be it terror outfits or be it the support of terror outfits as well. Now, of course, this has also reached the International Court of Justice. Once again, on the diplomatic front, as you rightly mentioned as well, the UN is also cognizant. Pakistan's permanent representative to the United Nations also highlighted all of this and this grave matter to the UN Secretary General as well. Why is there still concrete action which is still expected right now, but there is a lack of concrete action from world bodies regarding India?
I believe there is some activity going on because the UN Secretary General office has been partially mobilized. He has reached out to both the sides. And the President of the UN Security Council has also given some statement. And there are likelihood that the matter may be taken up. And one fails to understand the Indian strategy because on one side, for the last several years, they have been trying to argue that the United Nations has got nothing to do with the Kashmir issue. And on the other side, by virtue of these actions, the entire territory of Kashmir and the water issue in that area is now landing in the UN Security Council. And Security Council would certainly may want to look at the whole thing. So, in a very strange way, it is giving Pakistan some advantage to bring up this issue of Article 370-35A back to the UN Security Council. But as I said, this is one of these options. The other option, and the Security Council may hold a session, or there is a strong possibility of a backdoor diplomacy that might be going on very intensely before the session is convened so that it becomes more meaningful and there is a consent on both the states taken in advance. So we have to wait for a while, but I think Pakistan also needs to formally write. They may have written. The Pakistan's permanent representative certainly was seen calling on the UN Secretary General in New York. And I believe and I assume that Pakistan may have written formally under Chapter 7 of the UN Charter. If they haven't, they need to document that option as well, so that they're able to discharge their burden of informing the Security Council that a situation has arisen that is likely to endanger regional peace and international peace and security. Thank you.
Certainly, certainly. Thank you very much, Soofi Saab, of course, as he mentioned as well. And I think at large as well, Niaz Saab, at a diplomatic front now, Pakistan has highlighted these atrocities again and again, and also the subversive activities being carried out by Indian intelligence agencies. Once again, Pakistan has apprised the UN Security Council and, of course, the UN Secretary General of the threat to peace in South Asia and beyond now. It's very particular that we see that India's jingoism will not be only limited to the subcontinent, but will have adverse effects for the entire world, not even in South Asia anymore. How do you see Pakistan's diplomatic efforts in all of this scenario, post-Pahalgam's false flag operation as well?
Yeah, I think diplomatically things are quite in favor of Pakistan. Obviously, a lot of countries have, expressed sympathy with India, and that's understandable. Nobody supports murder and, this kind of an action of, people being killed before their families. So there is that sympathy, but then, along with that sympathy, almost every major country has also made it clear that they would like both countries to resolve this matter peacefully, diplomatically, and the U.S. Vice President in a statement yesterday before Fox News made it very clear that they would not like to see this matter, flare up into, a regional conflict, because everybody is aware what that means. And that could mean, last time too, India had, reacted, and there was the Balakot incident, but then it did not go very well for India, and it lost one of its planes, and its pilot was captured by Pakistani forces, and it was a very nice gesture by Pakistan to return him within a couple of days without much international pressure. So India is caught in a bind. They realize now Indian forces, obviously its military budget is much larger than Pakistan, but then all of it cannot be mobilized against Pakistan because India has a much bigger border. It also has a standoff with China. So if it's a short kind of a foray like what happened last time, the reality is that India doesn't have much of an edge over Pakistan, and even international observers recognize that in a short term kind of foray, India would not have much of an edge. But if it goes into something long term where India might have an edge, there is a reality then that there is, it might flare up into a nuclear kind of war, and then China may also step in because it would not like the balance of power in South Asia to be altered. So this is the bind that India faces in the short. In a very short war, it doesn't have an edge, and a long war is almost an impossibility. And that's why diplomatically all the countries are cautioning India of the very limited military operation options that it has, and everybody is reminding that the best thing would be to try to resolve this matter through dialogue bilaterally or with the help of other friendly countries. And Pakistan itself has offered an investigation, and I think that would be the best way forward, everybody to know the reality. But for some reason or the other, India is still not willing to accept that. So diplomatically also, I think Pakistan has a stronger position, and militarily it's like a dead end. So I think Pakistan is in a stronger position right now, and that's why you see last time in 2019 there was an action within 5 or 6 days after the Pulwama incident, for which to India never gave any evidence of involvement of Pakistan or even Pakistani-based groups. But then it reacted within, I think, a maximum 1 week, and now more than 1 week have happened. So I think gradually, better sense may be prevailing in India, that it has limited options beyond going back to the negotiating table.
Niaz, when we observe the political landscape in India, it seems to be a Hindutva ideology, RSS mindset, a complete jingoism as we see it as well. But can we for once think that right now amongst this situation, there might be sane voices who are raising concerns of a failure of a so-called democratically elected government in India, a failure of an intelligence agency to handle this situation in one of the most militarized zones in the world?
Well, the failure of security is not even quiet. It's quite loud within, even the Indian media. Everybody is talking about it, and some of the political leaders have also accepted it, that there was security lapse. You have what about 500,000 soldiers in such a tiny piece of land, and still this incident happened. So the security lapse and the security failure is being talked about loudly. Now, in terms of the overall political failure, I'm sure this rhetoric and jingoism is for external consumption, but for at an internal level within the corridors of power of BJP, there must be a realization of how badly they have failed at so many levels, the military level, the political level, in terms of being able to quell the insurgency in Kashmir, to be able to bring peace in Kashmir, or to make the larger Kashmiri population accept the status quo, let alone become integrated into India. And now, you see all the crackdown against Kashmiri students throughout India, which is being reported even in the Indian media, and that's going to, further, isolate and alienate the larger Kashmiri population from mainstream India. So, it's just been a fairly lose-lose situation for India on all fronts, whether you talk about the military angle, whether you talk about the international diplomatic angle, or whether you talk about, the domestic political angle. On none of them has India been able to, make any headway on the Kashmir issue.
Certainly, and because you mentioned 2019 as well, Niaz Saab, which seems to be a very important piece of this entire puzzle of false flag operations. We remember the statement of the former governor of Jammu and Kashmir, Satyapal Malik, who said in an interview, alleging that Pulwama was a result of gross negligence by the Indian government. He also went on claiming that Prime Minister Narendra Modi and National Security Advisor Ajit Doval instructed him to remain silent about the lapses to ensure the narrative against Pakistan continues. So this seems to be, the cat out of the bag, that the only policy of gaining votes, of gaining popularity, seems to be an anti-Pakistan rhetoric. No development, no policies based on providing to the masses or public service, but only anti-Pakistan rhetoric that gives them votes.
Yeah, I mean, that is, the sad reality that, it's a very conservative party. It doesn't have, that kind of roots in the masses like, some of the socialist parties have. So if it has to come to power, then, it has to use bigotry and, this kind of, far-right extremism to whip up emotions within India. And you do realize that, illiteracy is still fairly high even in India. And it's easy to, stoke emotions and, come back and, win elections on the basis of that. And in that sense, it's also, a failure of, the opposition in India that, they haven't been able to come up with better politics to be able to, defeat this right-wing extremism of BJP. But anyway, that's, their domestic politics. For Pakistan, that is the reality that, India seemingly stuck with BJP, and, there is no hope in the future that, an alternative political leadership from the opposition may come to power in the immediate future. So that is the stark reality that Pakistan has to face and has to prepare for, both domestically, militarily, and diplomatically. So far, I think, the situation is going well. Slowly, I think the chances of war or even a small skirmish are going down, and the situation is hopefully go towards, improvement.
Certainly, sir. Stay with us. I'm going to come back to you now. We have been joined by human rights activist, Barrister Mehrunissa Sajjid. Assalamu alaikum, ma'am. Welcome to the Situation Room.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for having me.
Right, Barrister Saiba, we know that there is a certain rhetoric of illegal detentions that has prevailed in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. But it has gone to another horrendous step now, where the Indian government is planning on executing in extrajudicial murder some of these prisoners and labeling them as terrorists. What impact does it have for the entire region of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir and the security of South Asia at large?
So I think, firstly, the narrative and the rhetoric that India has been employing, and we don't see this only in the last month. I mean, we've seen this through the entirety of Modi's government, and he's gotten more and more extreme with his aggressive nationalist stance. I think the impact is going to be extremely damaging for not just the stability of Kashmir and India and Pakistan, but all of South. Non-state actors and mischief makers who want to create trouble, they get the opportunity to thrive. That's one thing. Secondly, I also think that pursuing such an aggressive stance or line between two countries, both of whom are possess nuclear capability, that nothing good can come out of that. And on another level, if we look at the situation in Kashmir right now, and if we look at what has been happening this week in Kashmir, and as you're talking about the people, the innocent civilians who've been taken prisoner, I think this is only going to fuel the dissent and the discord that is already existing within Kashmir. And this is going to give a very kind of a fertile ground for non-state actors and violent extremist groups to kind of exploit this situation and to create further trouble. And not to say, obviously, the impact that this kind of unrest and instability will cause on the economic climate of the region and South Asia as a whole, in fact. So, and I mean, we've also seen from the response that India, I think, was perhaps expecting the United States of America to step in more strongly in support of India. But what has the statements that have come out of the White House have made it very clear that they are maintaining a very safe distance from this, and they have left it to India and Pakistan to solve this issue bilaterally, which is what needs to be done.
Certainly, Barrister Sahiba, as you mentioned as well, that this will further create dissent as well. But you know, the fact still remains that when you have a Hindutva RSS ideology and a mindset, that hatred does not stop and is not only limited to Muslims in India. It has spread to other minorities as well. We've seen it in the past where Christian localities have been targeted. We've seen it right now currently in the ranks of Indian Army where Sikhs are being labeled as carrying out mutiny amongst the ranks as well. There have been chops and changes in the past 48 hours. What does this signify as a mode of desperation from the Indian government?
I think you're absolutely right when you point out that this rhetoric often, once it is started by a government, this kind of rhetoric takes a life of its own, and it reaches a point when the government or the state even cannot control. So you cannot, this kind of indoctrination of a population or this kind of hatred that is being kind of planted into the hearts and minds of the Indian population by the current regime, this is not going to stop at just Muslims. It's going to take on an ugly face, and it's going to become a monster that is uncontrollable by the Indian state at large. And I think that there is a huge danger here. There's a danger to India more than it is to Pakistan, in fact, because internally within India, it is, I mean, such a diverse country with so many different ethnicities, people of so many different religions who are residing within India. So once you create this Hindu supremacy kind of ideology, and people, you have a faction of your population that genuinely believes that they are superior, and that gives them the right to go and kind of execute violence upon other people, that becomes a very, very dangerous, a very volatile situation, in fact, for the entire country. And that is what we're seeing in India right now as well.
Certainly, Barrister Sahib, I'm going to come back to you. Niaz Murtaza Sahib is still with us. Niaz Sahib, do you also agree with Barrister Sahiba as well that what India had expected, the response from the international community has been completely opposite? They consider themselves a so-called superpower in the region, and they expected a lot of support, but that didn't happen even from the United States, even from other world bodies who have now left it to Pakistan and India to resolve this matter. Do you believe that this is a complete slap on their face of the policies that they had created, the mindset that they had created, that they would be given backing by the international community?
Yeah, I think India would be quite disappointed, especially by the response of the United States of America, because, you know, Modi claims to have a very strong personal bond with Mr. Trump. You know, they're fairly similar kind of politicians. India has such strong access to the highest corridors of power within the USA. The last vice president was half American. The better half of the current vice president is a full Indian, some of, the security officials are Indian origin people, but you still see the USA taking a fairly balanced position and telling India to, cool it down. They haven't, accused Pakistan of being involved. They have, just, supported Pakistan's position to, try to resolve this issue peacefully. So I think that is one area of big disappointment. Then secondly, Russia has been, a traditional, India has very strong relationships with Russia for decades and decades. Russia has also not, taken a very strong, pro-Indian position. So yes, definitely at the international level, and the fact that there might be a meeting of the Security Council, that will also not be good for India, because India doesn't like to internationalize Pakistan India issues at the Security Council level, because they do remember that there is still a Security Council declaration from way back in the 1950s asking for a plebiscite. So if a Security Council meeting does get held, you can be sure that it will counsel peace and peaceful resolution. It's certainly not going to say give a go ahead to India. So in that sense, the international reaction has been fairly opposite to what India would have been hoping, and that is one reason you haven't seen a more muscular response from India so far.
Certainly. Of course, we'll go to Barrister Saiba as well. When we talk about this entire perspective now, the main pillar of contention over here has been the Indus Waters Treaty. Now, Barrister Saiba, this is an agreement that was brokered by the World Bank. So international community does realize the stake they have in this as well. What are some of the ramifications, implications that you see at the moment now? Of course, water is a basic human right as enshrined under the UN Charter as well.
Certainly, I think the Indus Water Treaty is one of the most important issues at play over here. The threat by Modi's government to back out from the Indus Water Treaty, firstly, it sets a very dangerous precedent internationally. This is why I think the international kind of superpowers, as it were, cannot back India or support such an action if that is taken by India. Because what you're doing is you are threatening to cut off a lifeline for 250 million people of Pakistan. And I mean, while India might, what they're trying to do is they are trying to use the Indus Water Treaty as leverage without any direct military engagement with Pakistan. But this is going to be seen as one of the most aggressive steps that India could possibly take, because it is a direct threat to Pakistan's stability, their food security as an agricultural economy. We depend on our rivers and agriculture constitutes more than 20% of our GDP. So it's the backbone of our economy. It's providing livelihood to so many people. So there's that. You are directly threatening the right to life and the right to livelihood, the right to water of 250 million people. Let me emphasize that that is no small thing, and this is not something that can be taken lightly. Secondly, the weaponization of the Indus Water Treaty, as we see India weaponizing it, using it as a pressure tactic against Pakistan, this sets a very dangerous precedent, like I said, internationally. Because when there are conflicts between two nations and when there are disputes, one would like to think that we have evolved in global geopolitics, has evolved to the level where this kind of threat or this kind of pressure will not be put on any country. So I think this is going to have dire consequences, and if you threaten, like I said, the lives of 250 million people, that is not something that Pakistan is going to take lightly or take sitting back. Pakistan, like has been said before by government officials, is going to respond with the full strength and might and full power of the state, as it should be done. Not to mention that how heavily dependent we are on energy generation from water as well. I think 1/5 of the energy produced in Pakistan is hydropower. So I think the Indus Water Treaty is a very essential cornerstone of this entire, and like you mentioned, this is something that was brokered. This treaty was brokered by the World Bank. So there's a direct stake of the international community involved in this as well, because if you let India back out of this or disrupt Pakistan's water flow, then the message that it is sending across the world is that none of these international treaties matter, that international law or the Vienna Convention, it can be brushed aside by any state at any time as they deem fit. And what does the rest of the global community do? Are they going to sit with their hands folded in their lap and just watch? I don't think so. And I don't think that in this day and age that is a precedent or that is a messaging that any one globally would want to see, or you would want to see this kind of behavior condoned.
But Barrister Sahib, this would remain a bone of contention, considering the kind of mindset we have across the, across the border, the kind of hatred that is spilled over there, the kind of policies that exist over there based solely on an RSS mindset. This shall always remain as a tool of weaponizing the Indus Waters Treaty. How do we in the future address this challenge diplomatically? Pakistan has already raised concern. As you also mentioned, the state of Pakistan said that we will consider this an act of war. But how do we see that the international community can act better upon this so that in the future, this shared resource cannot be used as a tool of war?
That's a very good question, actually, because, I mean, even before this, we have seen in the past, there have been issues with Pakistan's water flow. There have been instances of flooding. And I think that actually one good thing that can potentially come out of this situation is that there needs to be a future roadmap. After this, I think Pakistan cannot take this threat from India casually in the future as well. We cannot now we need the global community to come together and to ensure and guarantee that Pakistan's water flow is not disrupted in the future. So now within the Indus Water Treaty, there are a couple of dispute resolution mechanisms. So the first one, which was supposed to be a bilateral mechanism between the two countries, was the Permanent Indus Commission. So during Modi's regime, I think this was a few years ago, the commission has not met, and I think the last meeting was perhaps 2 years ago, if I recall correctly. So that goes out of the window, and we've seen that India is not open to any kind of dialogue with Pakistan on this issue. The kind of belligerent stance that Modi's government has taken, we see the PIC just being basically completely defunct. The second option that is there, and this is something that we should push the global community to look into, is actually having neutral experts look into the matter and provide technical assistance as well. So this is where I think international bodies like the World Bank and the United Nations have a big role to play. Looking into the eastern rivers, the western rivers, I know there has been some concern over a new dam that India is building and another water project that is in the pipeline in the eastern rivers, which potentially threatens Pakistan's water flow. So I think all of these issues, along with the energy needs and the water needs of both nations, needs to be taken into account by a neutral expert and technical people who can look into this and come out with a mechanism where we need to come up with a foolproof solution collectively to ensure that neither country is at risk of losing. Well, I mean, Pakistan in this situation is the country that is going to suffer, but we need to make sure that no one can threaten or hold Pakistan hostage or have this kind of noose hanging above our heads that we're going to cut off your water supply in the future. If this is something that the global community does not use international diplomacy to push towards, then we are looking at perhaps going into arbitration, as Pakistan has already indicated its intentions of taking this up to the ICJ. Those are other methods that we can look into. But I think what this situation highlights is that in the future, there lies a grave threat to Pakistan because of the Indus Water Treaty and because of how casually the Modi government can just say that we are backing out of this treaty. I think that...
Certainly. Thank you very much, Barrister Mehrunissa, for joining us in the Situation Room. Of course, one thing is for sure, that our desire for peace should never be mistaken as our weakness. And I think across the border, this thing is very much particular in their minds and hearts once again. That's all we have for now. Of course, we'll go towards the headlines, and after the headlines, you'll be continuing with this special transmission of the Situation Room on the recent tensions and the false flag operation of Pahalgam. From me and my entire team, it's goodbye for now.